a guy who's actually been there, a guy who went to a Super Bowl, won his Super Bowl, and then now has walked away from the game on his own terms. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Super Bowl champion with the Chiefs, and of course, Doctor now, proud Canadian. What's up, brother? How we doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. So, all right. When you're this week, things are leading up. It's the Super Bowl. It's your former team. It's the matchup that you actually won a Super Bowl, right? Is there any part of you're watching this, you're like, man, I miss it just a little bit, Like you go in the backyard, you got like a sled somewhere, you start pulling it, you're like, do I still got it? You got it.
Honestly, I'm gonna miss it every day of my life.
Yeah, okay.
Football is the greatest sport there is, and for me, like, there's no doubt that if it was not for the injury and all the practicing medicine, that kind of stuff, I would still be out there playing football. But the reality of the game is that you cannot play forever, and that when you're done playing, you're done playing. There's no garage league like hockey or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still root for the Chiefs. I still really enjoy watching the Chiefs play. I still have a lot of friends that play down there, so I'm really excited for them this weekend. It's a big weekend coming up, and
yeah.
I know it's going to trigger a lot of memories for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm glad you said it that way, like where you're like, of course I miss it. Like, I think it would be crazy for you to answer it the other way, where you're like, no, I don't ever think about it at all. Being with 52 other guys that I'm friends with and winning football games and winning the Super Bowl, like, who cares about that? Like, of course, that's awesome. You better miss doing that. Getting paid millions of dollars, travel around, be famous, and work out with the best and have the best nutritionists and people looking after you constantly. Like, of course, all those things are very, very neat. But what are you right now? You're 32? You're
Yeah, I'm actually turning 33 the day of the Super Bowl. That's why I'm staying in Montreal to celebrate with my friends and family. But I'm 32 right now.
Yeah, that's an expensive birthday. If you're like, let's go to the Super Bowl to celebrate, you're like, actually, never mind. I looked at.
And on top of that, you got to bring all your friends.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Is like all of a sudden you got to bring your friends. Like I saw one story where Christian McCaffrey said to his family, I can't afford to bring you all to the Super Bowl because the suite was something like $2.5 million for the game. Maybe it was even a little bit more than that. And you go, yeah, I would be telling my family no to that as well. Like, hey, you find a reasonable price on StubHub and maybe we'll talk.
2.5 million. That's crazy.
Yeah, for one game.
You pay that much money for like 4 hours of entertainment.
No, it's unbelievable. It actually, there's a greater conversation to be had about stuff like that. But I'll save that one for today. Okay, so you're excited for the Chiefs. You've still got friends on that team. They're facing the Niners, which is just so strange. Like, a lot of it is like there's a lot of players that are still left over from that Niners team. But how different is this group? Like, when you're looking at the Niners this time around and the Chiefs this time around, where do you see like the major difference?
Well, I think when you look at the Chiefs, the defense has improved quite a bit. Like, they're probably having one of their best year with a really talented young group out there. And when you look at the offense, I feel like we don't have the Tyreek Hills anymore that are able to expand the coverage and open like windows for Trav and that kind of stuff. So I think they're going to have to rely a little more on the run game, to be honest. But I mean, what they've been able to do in the last 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, it's pretty spectacular. Like, I feel like everything is in sync now. Coach Reid has been able to work on the thing that they had to work on, and they improve a lot when it comes to like targeting different receiver and opening windows for Travis Kelce. Because I mean, if Trav is the only target, they're going to bracket and double him the whole game, and it's going to be hard for him to like catch anything. But if they're able to show that other player are potential threats, then it's going to open up a lot of things. And if they're able to open the run game as well against a really good D-line, I think that's going to be a major key to the game. Of course, I'm biased. Like, the trenches are always important for me, but especially this week. I remember the Super Bowl in 2020. They still have a lot of the same guys on the defensive line, and I feel like it's kind of their recipe on the 49ers side to just draft first-round pick, put them on the D-line, and stack up talent and see what happens. And they have really, really, really good D-line out there.
Yeah. It's a bit of a shame that the Chiefs won't have their fully healthy Pro Bowl guard Joe Thuney in this game. He's dealt with a pec injury. And it seems like Andy Reid's being pretty cautious. But no, I agree with you. Of course, can you protect Patrick Mahomes? Are they going to be able to keep Brock Purdy upright? How is Chris Jones going to impact this game? Like, I don't think that's being biased. Like, that's just football. That's kind of our expectation with this thing. I'm very curious about the pressure angle of this, though, because part of me looks at Purdy and the Niners and goes, man, if Shanahan loses, that's That's 3 Super Bowls he's lost. And I know one's as an OC, but it's the most famous Super Bowl loss ever, right? It's 28-3, and his offense was a part of it. And all of a sudden you're looking at it, and it's like, 0-3, damn. That feels bad. Niners, a lot of their guys have been, or a bunch of their guys have been there before, but, you know, they're not Super Bowl champions. This isn't, maybe they are able to, maybe the pressure of not being there or the inexperience of winning this thing does affect them. But I keep looking at the Chiefs side and saying, maybe there's more pressure on them than we're giving it credit, which is they've got a massive legacy play here. Like Mahomes to have 3 Super Bowls in his first 6 seasons as a starter, for Reid to basically be able to cement himself as one of the greatest coaches of all time, for Travis Kelce to essentially be able to put himself down as like, I'm the best tight end ever. There's just getting that third clearly means just a way different echelon for the Chiefs. And I wonder how you think they're going to handle that and how they've been handling that over the last 2 weeks.
You know what? I feel like some players, some teams are really good at performing when they have a target on their back. Other teams perform well when they're underdogs. I feel like while I was in Kansas City, I've been a part of like 2 different teams, like a team that was an underdog, that was trying to perform, that was trying to beat the Denver Broncos, that was trying to beat the New England Patriots, and we did. And after that, the mindset switched, and we became a team that had a target on our back. And I feel like that's the kind of mentality that Coach Reid brought and Patrick Mahomes brought to this team, and the character. You know, I feel like it's because of that we were able to come back from large deficit in the games leading up to the Super Bowl in 2020. And I feel like that's why they're there right now this year, even though they don't have all the talent in the world, apart from like 3 really great players in Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. So I feel like it's no news. It's not new for the Chiefs to have to perform in that type of environment. And I feel like for the 49ers, you're right. Like maybe it's a team that is going to show up, especially with a young quarterback with a mindset of like underdog trying to win this thing. The big question is what is going to happen when we're going to see those momentum switch? Because a game of football is not a linear event. Like there's always highs and lows, and it's how you make like correct the little mistake and come back into the game as quickly as possible. And for me, like that's what I'm going to be interested in, is to look at how the 49ers are going to be able to come back in the game by making a big play when the momentum is going to switch towards the Chiefs. And I feel like if they start to have any sort of doubt, it's going to be really, really hard for them to stay in the game.
You know, can you say that about the Chiefs, though, too, to a degree, just because of this? Like, during the regular season this year, one of the reasons why I thought this was going to be different, and I mean that in a negative sense, was it wasn't just the lack of playmaking at times that the Chiefs were getting or the drop footballs. It was the frustration that they were showing at times. I remember the Denver game specifically where Mahomes just looked rattled and pissed off. And what was the game where he reacted afterwards about it was the Bills? I think it was the Bills game where it was the toe, like over the line. It was the
he started complaining.
Yeah. And he like lost and he went to the press. I went, man, I haven't really seen this Mahomes before. Like, and I know he's had so much success, but the composure has always been there with this player. He's always handled the limelight extremely well, and he's like the consummate sort of pro. And then this year, I don't want to say the dysfunction because that feels too strong, but the frustrations of the group, they seem to boil over in a way that hadn't in years past. And I wonder if they get hit in the mouth or if they're behind in this game, whether there's going to be any doubts about, the way that they're going to be able to handle that, given some of the stuff that we saw in the regular season this year versus years past.
You know what? It's a good point. I feel like over the last, 6 years, they always had that mentality of like, no matter what, we're going to find a way. And we have the confidence to come back in from any type of situation. And maybe that's a little different this year. You're right. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting one. For me, it's not going to be about talent. It's not going to be about play calling. It's going to be about pure mindset and character and finding a way to come out of lows in order to, make the big plays and find a way to come out on top.
So speaking of like the momentum and the big plays and just like, that mental side of things, how important, because I've been kicking around this theory recently, especially watching the last couple weeks where Kelce has been back to playoff Kelce. And you mentioned, hey, the other guy's got to make plays because if they just double him and beat him up all game, it's going to be tough for the Chiefs to win this one. But how important is he psychologically to this group or just from the momentum? Because it feels like the Chiefs are such a more physical and imposing football team when he's catching the ball, he's making runs after the catch, and he's starting to point and jaw in the other team's face.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why I love Trav. he's the kind of guy you want to play with, and there's people that, draw energy from other players, and there's people that just give energy no matter the mindset, no matter the situation. And I feel that's 100% Trav, and he's the kind of guy who can lead the offense. And, he's not the type of guy who's going to, he's not the Patrick Mahomes who's going to like spit out the play every play, and he's not going to be the one directing traffic, but he's the one that is able to lead this offense by the way he plays, by the mindset, by the way he's able to also just show his enthusiasm to the game, and that's what you want. You want a team that play with character, but also enjoy playing, because that's really a big factor to remove the morale from your opponent, is to just show that you play and you have fun out there. And I think, Coach Reid would always say before games, like, just let your personality show. And I feel like if Trav is able to do that, he's going to rally the whole team behind him.
It seems like his personality is very genuine.
Really genuine. You're right. And I mean, I like, it's little things, but it's things that you cannot really prepare for. After the AFC Championship, when he won like the most like catch in playoff or postseason, and the first thing he said was to shout out the guy before him. And it was on the spot. It was so genuine. Like, he's just that type of guy, like, who's always giving the credit to other people and funny. And I think he's he's the definition of a great leader to me. And I really enjoy playing with him. He's actually the first guy that I met in Kansas City. When I landed in Kansas City at MCI Airport, he was there waiting for his luggage, and he was like, "Are you the French Canadian that we just drafted yesterday?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that's the first guy that I met, and he's been the same way for the past 10 years, and it's a big tribute to him, because a lot of things that's changed in his personal life as well.
He said French Canadian. He knew that right away.
I don't know if he said French Canadian, maybe just Canadian.
Okay, no, because I was going to say.
The minute he heard me speak,
no, but yeah.
he said French Canadian.
Yeah. No, because I was going to say, that's really, and I wouldn't have put that on him to know, regionalities of Canada, but here we go. I was going to say, do you remember the questions that he started asking you about Canada? Because I'm guessing that's the icebreaker. Yeah.
Big. He's a big hockey fan.
Okay.
You know a lot about hockey.
Yeah.
He's actually a good hockey player himself. So we talk a little bit about hockey. But no, just a great dude that you want to hang out with. And he's able to perform, and he want to make those plays. He wants to be great in those critical situations, those critical moments. And that's all you need. And I feel that's why they're going to be a tough team to beat this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny, the Canadian thing, because I was talking about this on my show yesterday with a friend about how when Americans, they sign with like the Toronto Blue Jays, right? Or that there's rumors, it's always the same things where they're like, they really like hockey. And a lot of us here are like, that's cool. like we don't care. We have other interests outside of just hockey. I just think it's like, I wonder how many times you got that conversation over your career where guys wanted to just break the ice with you. And they're like, so hockey, huh? And you're like, yeah, it's good. I like it. I guess.
And we talk about something else.
Yeah, yeah, but it's just like the amount of, I like imagine if there was just a slideshow of times in your life or throughout your career where someone met you and was like, what do you think about hockey? And you're like, yeah, okay, what are we going to get into? And people say they're a big fan, right? I'm sure they do, like, oh, I'm a big hockey fan. You go, oh, yeah? But they're a big hockey fan in the States, right? Like, they're a big hockey fan where they're from, which means that they know it exists. Like, they're aware that there is like a hockey team somewhere close to them. Like, I saw a clip of J.J. Watt on McAfee's show yesterday, and he was they asked him who he was a fan of, and he was like, well, I grew up in Wisconsin, and so I liked the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. And I was like, that's not a thing. Like, that's not, but that's what, it's like he loved both those teams. He's like, I went back and forth. I was like, oh, okay, so you're not a hockey fan. Like, you played some, but you didn't really care. That's the way it is. And he's like the face of hockey fandom for the NFL. So that's sort of where it's at. Anyway.
That's funny. And it's kind of the same thing, living in Kansas City for 9 years. Now the question when I meet people from Kansas City is like, which spot is your favorite barbecue spot?
Yeah,
like, what kind of barbecue you like? And you're like, okay, so now we can talk about hockey and barbecue.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, actually, no, this is good. Tell me something about Kansas City that if I meet somebody from Kansas City, I can bring up other than barbecue or the sport team, right? Like because obviously I could bring up the Chiefs or be like, oh, he signed Bobby Witt Jr. I work in sports, but give me something that's a Kansas City thing that I would talk about with them? Like, do they have like a housing crisis there? Like, is the cost of living there really high right now? Give me something that's Kansas City deep cut.
Maybe talk about the difference. Like, to me, like, there's a road called State Line that divided Kansas City between Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. And to talk about the difference between the, in demographic and everything is pretty fascinating to me. So you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, except for you just set me up because you were like, it's a fascinating difference. And then I would say that and they'd be like, how so? And I would go, it just is to me. I just think it's very fascinating. And then I got to put my hands in my pocket or look at my phone and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call. I could walk away. But I'll have that moment. Maybe I'll leave them with something a little bit more. Okay, so.
Talk about the car auction or the
there
rodeo.
We go.
Or
see, that's better. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Yeah.
Also, I'm not a big gun guy, but like they have gun shows every week. To me that's crazy. But it's the one like you gotta attend that at least once in your life.
Of course.
So, a couple like really Midwest things.
Yeah. Listen, I'm from Northwest Canada. It's like I could get behind a gun show. All right, I could get to one. I'm not a huge gun guy myself, but I could definitely see myself going to one and being like, this is pretty cool. Okay, so back to the actual game. You talked about Reid and the play calling and. Mahomes having that ability to make the read at the line. How much of we've always heard that read, and we saw this in the Baltimore game too, where the idea is that the very beginning of the game for the Chiefs is always scripted. How real is that in a game like this, right? Like, how much is Mahomes going to change at the line? How much does this Chief offense know what they're going to do for the first series or two?
I mean, Coach Reid is pretty consistent about that. Like every night before the game, he's going to install the first 15 plays of the game, and that's kind of a list that your name's on it, and you do not lose that sheet of paper because it happens in the course of his career that the player lost his sheet and ended up in the wrong people's hands. So, but like those 15 plays are pretty scripted, and of course, like there's tweaks here and there, or like plays that can be killed to another play, or play that are run pass options. But at the end of the day, like the tempo of the game is pretty scripted initially. And of course, apart from the third downs, where like he's going to pick like plays that are like good for like 6 to 8 yards or 4 to 6 yards or whatever. But the first 15 regular play of the game are usually scripted, and it helps as a player because you can prepare. Like you know the first play of the game, you know what are the different possibilities, you know what's the weakness of that play, what you have to look for in terms of defensive structure, what call can you make, and then you just go over those plays like before going to bed and the morning of. And it just, for me, it was a big. It helped me cope better with the pressure of those first few drives where you don't necessarily know what to expect, but at least you know what you're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm. But with that, like with those scripted plays, when do you get them? Like you said before the game, but for a Super Bowl, are you getting those further in advance? Like, does that happen earlier, or that still ends up being like a last minute night before thing?
Well, football you play every Sunday 90% of the time, and everything is about preparation and finding that routine. So Coach Reid is pretty big on that. So no matter like where you play, what you do, like every Wednesday you do the same thing, Thursday you do the same thing, you install the same plays, same situation, you watch the same film, you practice the same way, and then we traveled every Saturday. And we get to the hotel in the city we're playing at, or in Kansas City at 5:30 local time. We eat the same thing. We do the same meeting at 7:30. We go to bed at the same time, and we wake up. We get to the stadium 3.5 hours before the game, and it's the same routine, the same stuff. And it helped, to be honest, to start the game in your mind the night before. I really helped cope with the pressure of the national anthem and the jets flying over the stadium and the coin toss, that kind of thing. So. The plays are for sure going to be installed, Saturday night, and people are going to bed with those and thinking about that and showing up to the game ready to roll.
So with the routine stuff, everyone always makes a big deal during the Super Bowl about how much longer the halftime is. Is that real? Like, is that an actual thing that you had a difficulty with adjusting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time. Because everything, like, you want to stay, like, on eye alert even though it's halftime, and the usual halftime is, what, like 12 minutes, 13 minutes? So you by the time you go into the locker room, you go to the bathroom, you grab a little bite, you just, like, line up those meetings between the O-line, the offensive coordinator, and the whole team, and then you're back on the field, and it's like go, go, go. But when you add 10 minutes inside the locker room, it's huge. It's more than double the actual time you're usually spending in a locker room. So, but Coach Reid was great about that. Like I remember in Miami, we practiced those halftime drink practices. So it was like, okay, now we're going to sit on the bench for like X amount of time, and he would give us like the schedule and the breakdown, and we had like the trainers doing like little workouts during halftime and that kind of stuff. And especially for us, because we, as an offense, we didn't finish with the ball in the second quarter, and we didn't start with the ball in the third quarter. So we were, I think it was more than an hour between the last play of the second quarter and the first play of the first quarter for us as an offense. So it's huge. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So I'm gathering that Reid is just an unbelievably meticulous guy.
Oh, he is. He is. Like Coach Reid would always, like, there's not a single time where I show up in the building in the morning and he was not already parked in the parking lot, and there's not a single time where I left the building that he was not still there watching film. Like, it's really impressive, and that's why he's a great leader, because he leads by example, and he's really meticulous about everything that he does.
Yeah. Again, it makes this matchup so interesting with these two coaches, because it does feel like Reid is that guy. He is that play caller. He does have the resume, and it feels like Kyle Shanahan is the one that wants that resume. Is the offensive coach, is the play caller that if things go a little bit differently and for him in a couple of different situations, he's viewed, just in a very, very different light. And he's been on that cusp, and he's had those chances, and he really wants what Reid has already got. All right, last one. What is, like, you talk about leaders and preparation, and I'm sure it's a lot of glowing things that you have to say about Patrick Mahomes, but there's got to be a certain level of just extra pressure when you're the ones blocking for him. You're the ones keeping him upright and not hurt. And like every time you look back and there's someone on top of him or someone that's hit him, knowing like you might be famous now for hurting the greatest quarterback potentially ever.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said it just right.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, and that thought started to occur to me after the Denver game. I don't know which year it was. I think it was maybe 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
When Pat dislocated his knee or his patella.
Right.
And it happened like on a third and one. And it's like, whose fault is it? Because like everybody's in the pile trying to push it, and he's behind. And that's when Coach Reid stopped doing like going for QB sneak on 3rd and 1. It's because it was such a traumatic event for the whole team, because it was like, what's going on? And Pat was like just yelling like, it's out. What are you talking about? I was like, fumble or what? And it was about his knee. And and at that point, I must say, like, you start thinking about that. It's like, okay, well, and you don't want to think about it too much, because you want to do your job, and that's the thing with the fine line, and what makes a great offensive lineman is somebody who's able to block somebody running backwards in the pass protection mindset, but still being the aggressor. So you don't want to be like passive. You don't want to react to what's in front of you. You still want to dictate the rush. You want to dictate the move, but while you're running backwards. So that's it's not an easy thing to do, but when you're able to do that and you play with confidence, that's when you're able to disrupt the pass rusher you're going against. So you don't want to think too much about Pat behind you. And anyway, Pat is like probably the best at extending the play. So sometimes you get beat clean, but it ends up being like a third down conversion for like 20 something yards. So you never know. So you just try to do your best. And Pat is not the type of guy who's going to, yell at his O-line either. He's always like positive. So that's good, because it's way easier to take risk and to protect for a great quarterback when he's grateful about the work that you do.
Yeah, he doesn't yell at his O-lineman. He just, when his receivers drop passes now, he does the two hands on the helmet where he's like, I can't believe you dropped that. His two hands.
Yeah, but the good thing is that you see that when you watch the game, because they have like a camera focus on him. But the reality is that you don't. By the time the wide receiver is coming back to the huddle, like it's all positive and it's next play. And I feel like we're showing up a little more, too much of the nonverbal negative stuff, because the reality is that during the course of the game, that's not really what you're feeling. At least that's not what I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that one of the guys who, is on the verge of going to win a third straight Super Bowl, or has a chance to do that, is someone that inspires confidence in his teammates and doesn't drag them down. It's not a poisoning force. I would just guess that the guy who, what is it now? 6 AFC championship games every single season that he's been a starter. Just played his first road playoff game like that. Yeah. His leadership is probably also meshing with the talent.
Yep. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Hey, man. Always a pleasure to have you on. Again, like an honor. You're, the guy that Canada's very, 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 very proud of. And I appreciate you making time, especially ahead of your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend, man.
For sure. You too, buddy.